Information is key.
It is power.
Information rules the world.
Get informed.
Stay informed. Nigeria Info. Your number one station for talk.
Welcome. Good afternoon. Welcome to Borderlines, the only show that takes you beyond borders. Well, we do a heck of a lot to take you beyond borders. You see, and also one of the things that I get to do here is to be selfish because I literally have the best producer in the universe. Argue with your phones, I haven't got your time. See, my next guest, I came across her video and I was like, whoa, I found my twin indeed. She claims she's younger, don't believe her. We're the same age. I found my twin. I found that person, that female, that woman that I connect with. Not only do I connect with her, you should all be connecting with her because my God, she's super smart, super brainy. She's fearless. She's inspiring. She speaks it as it is. But importantly, the reason why she's belonging to Borderlines is because she friggin' educates you in a way that you will never forget. Busayo twins, welcome. You see, there's not just one. She had to double herself. It's twins. How are you, my darling?
I'm fine, thank you so much. Thank you for the introduction. Very humbled. Thank you so much.
Oh, my darling, it's amazing to have you. It's brilliant. You're a TED Talk, TEDx speaker. Also, One of the things you did, which I must tell my people before we move on, is that you were the first Black General Secretary at what? London School of Economics, LSE.
Yes.
I mean, at the almighty, not just LSE, the almighty LSE. You were the first Black General Secretary of the Union.
Yeah.
My word. You... I get inspired by young people, and then there are times when I get inspired by exceptional young people. You are one of those. And really, it's an absolute honor to have you right now here in conversation with me. Talk to us about your last TED Talk, The Illusion of Hope. I remember just watching it, and I thought to myself, ouch, my name is Hope. And she's talking about the illusion of hope. This is so important. And one of the things I think you said, if I may paraphrase, is in the future, we're not going to be asked about our hope. We're going to be asked about our activism. Unpack that for us.
So my TED Talk wanted to explore my personal journey with my activism and my faith. And I felt, especially when you're so-called an intellectual, sometimes when you talk about being of faith, people can feel like you're a bit too smart to be religious because they feel like you know more than this, especially if you know history and politics. Why are you kind of relying on faith? But at the same time, there's so many answers and things happening in the world that I rely on God for. So for me, I wanted to I always had an issue with reconciling both of them. And especially now with the 3 at least consecutive genocides happening, the people of faith felt that they were more paralyzed. They weren't actually as active as I thought they would be, especially as people who are being taught, or every time they pick up their Bible or religious book of choice, that oppression is wrong. Side with the needy, side with the widows. That's our fundamental, apart from love thy neighbor, that's what we're supposed to be doing. So I just felt trapped in between those two. So I felt as though hope or faith, depending on the context, can sometimes be a tool that stops you from being active because you feel like you've prayed about it. There's no more need to act on it. Whereas I believe 2:26 is faith without works is dead. So you can have all the faith in the world, but if you don't take up that position, don't at the end of your life look at God and say, why didn't you help? But he'll say, well, he gave you all the ingredients to do what you had to do. So for me, it was about exploring how the paralysis of hope, and it's actually quite redundant or obsolete unless you act on it.
Indeed, it is. I mean, we do try to remind people all the time that, you have a responsibility to use your voice, because what is the point of God giving you a voice? Indeed, if you believe in God or whatever you believe in, what is the point of a voice if you can't use it at least to challenge? And that's one of the things that you do. You challenge power, you challenge norms using language. Language is your weapon. And you mentioned about the 3 genocides we have going on right now. Today, it has just been declared that Gaza is now officially a famine. But here's the thing you said. And I want you, because when I say this to people, they'll be like, Sisi Ege, you always go on about this thing. Let me read your quote. Where are we? I want to read this particular quote to you where you said, here we go. You said, for clarity, to everyone who is now speaking up, you are not turning the tide of genocide. The tide of genocide. The tide against genocide turned you. Know the difference. Tell us about that.
I think there's often a lack of humility when people join a movement at a certain stage about what came before them, the struggles that people had to try and engage them in a movement, and they prefer for us to focus on the fact that they've joined it, not recognizing that the honor was not in you joining the movement. It's the fact that the pull against genocide was so strong that you've been pulled into it. So it's more circumstantial and convenient rather than your morality and ethics. And I think the reason why it's important is not because we want to distract ourselves away from the genocide and talk about who came when and not. But if we are going to be complicit in genocide, indirectly or directly, then we are also responsible for how long it's been going on for. So you have committed a crime. We have all committed a crime. So when you come in, you have to come in as someone who's understood their role in it. But also, if you don't acknowledge or communicate, you understand why you've come in and appreciate what's happened before you, you are susceptible to committing the same mistake. Because if you only join a movement when the tide is changing, then you're not useful, because when other genocides occur or oppression occurs, you're not going to be there at a pivotal moment. You're just going to join when it turns. So for me, it's very important that we articulate and know the difference, so we don't believe there's this intrinsic morality that we acted upon. Because for it to get to a stage of a genocide, that means you've missed the cue of conflict, you missed the cue of war, you've missed the cue of apartheid, you missed the cue of colonialism. Those things was not enough for you. In fact, the starvation and, the killing of children systemically, ethnic cleansing was not enough. But because now the language of famine, and by the way, when we talk about famine, no one likes to, you don't have to admit who's committing the famine. So it's still a comfortable way of joining, because now you still don't have to say, oh, this is the perpetrator. You're joining in a very comfortable position. So for me, it was very much wanted to be clear that we will have time for you, but let the record show, let history show that you joined when it was convenient for you, not because you understood the sanctity of life.
Indeed. And it is about, I'm going to say it as it is, the likes of Piers Morgan, the likes of the vast majority, CNN, BBC, Sky News, MSNBC, all the Western press, whom on October 7th, Hamas committed an atrocity. Fine. On October 8th, Israel told, possibly, the only time they have ever told the truth in their lives. Israel told us the truth of what their intention was. It was genocidal. Israel said they called Palestinians or Gazans human animals. No food, no water, no electricity, they said. Prime Minister Netanyahu said Amalek. He invoked Amalek. Yet, every Western, literally, NATO, members of the UN, indeed, Christian Zionists, kept saying Israel had a right to defend itself. Now, in the context of what you've just said, where, those of you who are now joining, it's not because the tide of the genocide turned against you. Would that message apply to those people?
Would the message apply to
the likes? Yes, those. Yes, those who didn't listen when Israel told us what their genocidal intention was, but instead chose to go towards has a right to defend itself.
Yeah, no, of course. There's the complexity about perpetrators and victimhood is that they're not mutually exclusive. The same people being perpetrators are being used. Their ignorance, and remember, this is decades, if not centuries, of dehumanizing people who are Muslim or Arab or from the global South more broadly. As Africans, we know this. So that has played a role to the point where they cannot even see right from left. Then on top of that, when you are more concerned about preserving Western influence, because as far as I'm concerned, and these are views on my own, Israel's an extension of that imperialism in the Middle East. you do not have the skill set to challenge what you don't know needs to be challenged. So with Christian Zionism, there's a lot of, you're drunk off of what you think God wants. So of course, when you don't read the Bible for yourself, why wouldn't anyone tell you that God said that if more Jewish people are going to Israel, it's the prelude to the coming of Christ? Because you don't know that the word oppression probably comes up more than any word to do with what you're owed in this world. So that's one thing about the Zionists. It's also that it's just the conditioning, the normal religious, overzealous kind of conditioning. That the media, what it really is that the media has exposed itself as not actually being a function of the state. I think it's less about them not knowing. I think it's more about them weighing up and saying, you know what, is it my job or is it the lives of Palestinians that live thousands of miles away? But also, if no one else is doing it, I don't want to be the first one to do it, because as we get to this place of calling it a famine and genocide, many people have lost their jobs. Many people have been blacklisted when it wasn't popular. People are looking at, and because we worship capitalism, we worship the idea that if you preside on the side of capital, then you are a winner. And that's people's religion. So therefore, anything that undermines that and has to make you reflect on actually your contribution, people don't like that. Capitalism is not about agency. It's not about responsibility. It's about the accumulation of wealth that determines your value in society, period. Nothing else matters. And so this is the kind of conversation that is trying to pick apart that. So I'll say the media production, people like Piers Morgan, you've shown yourself as a very useless person. And when this period ends, hopefully, there'll be no space for you, because the new generation is looking at this like, we're seeing a genocide and you're denying it. So for me, it's that weird mix between you're conditioned by a Western. Remember, the West are the most conditioned people on earth. The most conditioned people, and they don't even know it. The most conditioned people on earth. So there's a victim part of that where it's like, I feel so sorry for you. I think it's Fela Kuti's son who was like, at a festival saying free everybody, but also free EU.
Yes.
Free the UK, free.
Yes.
Free.
Yes.
That's basically what it did. Free yourselves from your, so there's a lot there. There's a lot of an identity crisis that's happening. I think Palestine is the perfect combination of unraveling that Western identity to the point where people didn't know that there was bias in the media. People are watching BBC because they felt it was, oh my gosh, it's like the national treasure. Now they're realizing that,
that's not the case. So and it's interesting that you mentioned that about how people didn't know about, the bias in the media. Like you, I grew up in the UK, and we black people of the UK have always said, hang on, stop. These people, the way they talk about black people, if a crime is committed by a black person, the way, or even if a black footballer misses a penalty, the way it's put out there, the way it makes the headlines, the narrative that they put behind it is so evidently racist. But the moment we say that, we're told, well, you people are always claiming racism. You claim racism to everything. Talk to me. One of the things you also said is capitalism. Capitalism and colonization. Join them together for us. For my listeners, for those at the back who, like you said, are still, what did you call them, intellectually unsmart? I can't remember what you used.
Anti-intellectual.
Anti-intellectual, that's right. Yes. Talk to us about the nexus between capitalism and colonialism.
So capitalism is essentially a system that centers, and its main aim is to increase profit. That's all it is. There's no other humanitarian purpose of it. It's just to accumulate profit, and it rewards those with capital because it allows you then to get more capital. And therefore, those who own the means of production are always going to have political leverage over the people who don't have means to capital. They will determine the wages, they will determine how long you work, they will determine what you have access to. So capitalism's main goal is to make more money for the sake of money. And if it can be bought and sold, whether that be people, whether that be body parts, whether that be, items, goods, it will be sold. There is no boundary that capitalism, there's no internal ethical structure for it to self-correct. So if they could charge us to get oxygen, they will find a way to do it. It's just that they haven't found the way. That's what that is. Colonialism, over the centuries, capitalism has evolved because the countries that are benefiting from global capitalism, so the global trade of capital, are the countries that had the least resource. So if you look at capitalism, if it was all fair, the people who have the most to trade will probably get the most money. That's just that's what they're telling us. If you have the most trade or the most skill, you have the most money or the most capital. But if you look at the resources from across the world, the global south has the most resources required for the future, for the technology and everything. Yet they are still they are still less than, in economic terms, than the West. This is because coercion was the tool that the West used to extract, to steal resources. And we know with slave trade, colonialism is basically a form of capitalism where you coerce people. You control all their state resources to serve the purpose of capitalism, to take all the resources out of one country to serve Britain. And now we're in a position where the global north has benefited off that extraction of the global south. So colonialism, obviously, when, for example, Nigeria, when we were led by or controlled by Britain, its purpose was to feed the Western machine. The idea was that Africa is now the backyard to Britain, who has no resource. So what they're going to do with their guns and, again, their thirst for power, and of course the desperation, there was nothing here, more or less, nothing here, maybe cereal and one or two other things that they were able to do. What they did was use that to come to someone else's backyard and extract resources. But because they know it belonged to them, they had to create this administrative system that made it look sophisticated. It looked like order. And that's why when we talk about trains and look at transport, none of these things in Africa are there to spread food and water and productivity across Africa. It's to take it out of the continent. So colonialism was the essential tool in the middle of the 20th century to extract it after independence. Because before that, you had slavery. Slavery changed. It was kind of like, it's unpopular to be slave. So they said, you know what, you're going to be a free citizen, but because you can vote now, let's control that process. So it's like the essential political tool of coercion to aid the pattern of trade.
Absolutely. Like I said, Nigeria, the Nigerian colonialist project was a business. End of. It really wasn't anything more than a business. And of course, so was slavery. So you put it so well. And I'm glad because often, people of the South, and interestingly, especially a lot of people in Africa, actually don't know that, or they choose to ignore that. Here's the thing. One of the things that we're beginning to see is this anti-immigration. Yes, anti-immigration, especially, let me talk about the UK. I leave America to deal with their problem. Anti-immigration in the UK. You have, not my sister, but I don't know if you want to claim her, Kemi Badenoch on one side. Then you have Nigel Farage on the other side. And then you have Keir Starmer. And it would appear that immigrants are now, the sort of tennis ball for them to bounce each other. And it's a case of, who catches as many balls as possible. What is not spoken about, though, is how every country that is responsible for where most of those immigrants come from has been affected by an action of the UK, either as part of NATO or historically. Talk to me about that. Talk to me about being Busayo, the Nigerian, the super smart, you're not just Nigerian, the super smart LSE graduate, young LSE graduate, intellectual, British Nigerian, who is living in this UK that seems to have forgotten all of this history. And now multiculturalism is the problem. How?
So this is, as we said, years of dehumanizing Black and brown people across the world. I'll just use that term to talk about the global south. Dehumanizing these people, but also strategically offshore. So not in Britain itself, but outside of Britain. So the people who are not indigenous to Britain, because they're not, but the white people, especially certain demographics of white people in Britain, they've never understood where the wealth has come from. So they've been taught subconsciously, directly, indirectly, that they are intrinsically, by virtue of being white, or they'll deny it, by virtue of being British, because apparently British people are the smartest, they are the benchmark of what it means to be civilized. Because of that, they just feel like, yeah, of course. But they woke up and all of this was here. Like they built the NHS on their backs and they didn't know the truth. So what's happened is that now, because the economy is since 2008, mind you, but particularly under the Conservative government through austerity, not underfunding public resources, the quality of life for the average white person has declined. At least materially, at least in the ways that they care about. So what they need to do is find someone to blame. And because they don't know the truth about the role immigrants play in Britain, it's easy for them, for the people who know the truth, like the Keir Starmers, to be like, it's these people. Because politically in Britain, it's not about being right or wrong. It's just about who can be the most charismatic and convincing to the people. It doesn't matter. And because they all benefit from the British project. So what we need to remember is that the British project doesn't change. You can change the MP, you can change the government, but the British project is the only thing that will last, which is their purpose is to try and remain this kind of soft, medium soft power in the global economy. So anything you do to undermine that, somehow you'll disappear. Or somehow you'll be attacked in the media like Jeremy Corbyn. So the idea is that the British project has one function. You can have slight deviations in conversation. One can call them immigrants, one can call them foreign this and that. The idea is that you don't want people who are not white here. That's the real discernment.
And who are they to actually say that? Like some people will argue. Some people argue that, hang on, it's their place, it's their land. You know, they have every right to say that. And then I say, but what rights do they have to say that? Because I think that right was lost the moment you invaded my land, wasn't it?
It goes back to, again, because we're using their education to challenge them, even our language, how we oppose them, is restricted. The idea of even owning land in a life where we all are going to pass through, where by God's grace, we live till 80 and beyond, the concept of ownership of land is very strange. That is why they have a particular relationship with the land, because it's like a religious kind of like cultural proverb where it's like, those of you who built your heaven on earth, of course you'll do anything because you think, of course you'll commit a genocide because you think this is your final stop. You do not appreciate the land, because even if you wanted that land, why would you bomb the land? If you appreciated it, there's a difference. So even, going back to them being able to say this, is because going back to education, they haven't got a concept of how the country was built. So that's one thing. But number two, it's also the case of there are mixed messages. There's tiers to this immigration. They don't like the fact that people coming from war are coming here on small boats. It also goes down to like the idea of like civilized, how to come here civilized. You know, they have this obsession. Most of the immigrants that are coming here have been welcomed here, have been, as you said, asked to come here. In fact, filling up gaps that a British person would never even look at. Those are the main immigrants, the educated ones. Those coming on small boats doesn't mean they're not educated, but the idea of like the educated ones who are coming here coming through aeroplane. Britain was built. That's why even when you remove Brexit alone, which is just the EU, brought the UK to its knees. And that's white immigrants or European immigrants, let alone the ones. So British people haven't got an understanding of how the economy works and who is responsible for what. All they see is white faces in high places, and they associate that with who built this country. It's not the case. For a long time, the white working class were also trying to be sent to the Caribbean as well, but they couldn't stand the heat and they died. You were the first slaves. The Irish, before the Irish were allowed to be white, not everyone who's white now was white. But then because the global economy, when you look at it, white people are the minority. There's no way you should actually be leading, because at the end of the day, but what they need to is expand the concept of whiteness. That's why they call it white working class. Why do you need to be distinct from all the other working class? Because you need to keep it at, what is white working class? I don't understand. But because it's supposed to be weird that white people are working class. It's supposed to be a shock, right? It's like saying a rich black person. Why can't it just be a black person? It's because it's supposed to go against the trend. So basically, they just don't have a good history of what's happening, and it's a low self-esteem thing. It's low self-esteem. You know, for you to go from, oh, I thought I deserve this land, or God grant me this land, or I'm white and great, to you're just a regular person like anybody else. It's a lot for the psyche to take. So instead of addressing it, you lash out.
Indeed, you lash out.
And then you start saying, you lash out. And that's what it is. It's a lashing out. And, what can you do other than tell them, pick up a book identify the root cause. And it sounds very, and I don't like demonizing working class people in general, because they're actually victims of this machine of trying. So they are victims of it, right? However, you don't, especially the adults, you don't need anyone to tell you that glorifying the harm, the demonization of anybody is wrong. It doesn't matter, even if we are responsible for the rubbish of this country. That's where I'm like, no, you're adults. There's no version of this where demonizing another person. Then you take people come from small boats, the most vulnerable in our society, global society. They're coming over here, and mind you, Britain is never their first stop. No one wants to come to Britain. Even people that work here, they're like, if I could get out, Britain's not a nice place.
Don't say that to Nigerians. They'll tell you. Don't tell that to Nigerians. Yeah. They'll tell you, no. We will want to jack by there. They want to jack by there. It's bizarre.
They'll come on TikTok and you'll see all the stories of people saying, I came and it's not what it seems.
It's not what it seems. Yeah.
It's covered in gold. Wasn't that the thing where they told people in like the 60s, 70s, 80s?
Yes, the Windrush. Yes.
Exactly. Then they came, they're like, you don't even have a toilet and a bath in your house.
They didn't. Busayo, please explain that to my listeners. They won't believe me. They may not believe that Nigeria had electricity before the UK. But please, those outside toilets, I'm so glad you brought out, actually forgotten. Those outside toilets, please just talk about it for like 30 seconds. I need them to hear this.
Yeah, so from the accounts of obviously people that have come from particularly Windrush, the Caribbean, when they came and they were told that this place was supposed to be like quote unquote civilized, and the white men that were on our land, they acted like we were animals. So I assume when you go there, it's going to be, they went there, people were not bathing, generally not bathing, unless things got too much, too dirty. The toilets were outside. There wasn't any sewer system. It was just carnage. They had to bring the sense of cleanliness to the UK and encourage them to not only have toilets, not just the communal ones, but have toilets for people, have them in your houses, bath. And the reason why we know that's not indigenous to white people is because when we had, or British people, when we had COVID here, one of the first things they told everyone to do was stop kissing your dog, wash your hands when you get home, leave your shoes on the bed, and try and shower. Those are the instructions. So imagine how appalled we were. Like, so this thing that is, look how much COVID hit the UK.
Yeah.
It's not a joke.
It was big.
When people are not bathing.
Well, you had a prime minister that had dandruff.
Exactly. He had dandruff, but then he'll also go home where I'm sure he has people to bath him in a very hyperbolic sense. But yes. So he'll be saying all that stuff. But so British people, again, they like to, the idea of civilization is really just how advanced your military is.
Indeed.
That's what it was, and the purpose. There's nothing else. They can't fathom that other people's purpose or sense of community is not based on how much they can steal from others. It's sharing. It's what I have is not mine. I'm temporarily here. Let me share with others. Community is important. We don't have that system here. So of course it's going to infiltrate. Your economic system is going to infiltrate your personality, your outlook on life. Whether you want to or not, it's very difficult to focus on humanity when everything in your life is commodified. So
one of the videos of yours the first one that I came across was, and the one I said at my introduction that really struck me was after the Freedom Flotilla. And you said, because, so after the Freedom Flotilla, everybody was having a go at Greta Thunberg. And incidentally, some of the people on that Freedom Flotilla are friends of mine. They're fellow activists. I had met them before. Wow. In fact, one of the main organizers, I know them. But anyway, so the whole world somehow forgot what was going on and focused on demonizing this young lady, this young girl, Greta Thunberg. And I remembered your video where you said it had to be Greta. Tell us why it had to be Greta.
It had to be Greta because Greta represents, outside of her politics, she represents the holiness or sanctity of white lives. When you look at foreign policy, when you look at rhetorics from our government, it's always to save women and children. That was supposed to be the West Red Line. Hollywood to anywhere is saving women from this threat outside. And Greta is a white girl, a young woman now, actually, white young woman, who represents, she was on the right side of history for a long time because of climate change. And, there's a lot of white people who care about climate change as well. So she embodied something that was kind of like, you can't really criticize, right? So when she went on that, and she's well-known, millions of followers, celebrity status, it had to be her on that boat because only somebody with those factors could warrant the attention that ship needed to keep it somewhat safe. Number one. As the celebrity status she has, it would give it attention because these people can disappear. We know what that state is capable of. Number two, as a white person, when white lives are in danger, it creates that controversy, that inner dilemma, that when other races or ethnicities are in danger, doesn't stir up in people. Because you've dehumanized the global South, Black and brown people, them dying, them having famine is not news. It wouldn't change how I feel about my day. But if a white person who is supposed to not live a life anything close to oppression, unless they're perpetrating it, it makes them feel, oh my God, how can a white young girl be in danger? It triggers stuff because the images of Greta on a ship and being taken by, officers and being put in a prison. White people who have white children are going to look at their kid and say, oh my God, this is possible for my child. My child could be taken by people. Hold on. No.
That wasn't part of the plan. Yeah.
It wasn't part of the plan because we're supposed to be on the right side. And when the white Israelis come in contact with a white young girl on a ship, let's see what that interaction is. Because if it was a Palestinian, they're going to be a terrorist. If it's a Black person, it's because they're a drug dealer, thug, or whatever name you have for them. It's going to be that. So there's a justification. How will you justify the conflict, the confrontation between a white soldier and a white young girl? White people don't really have to deal with that conversation. So I think it had to be Greta because she embodies everything that will reveal the cognitive dissonance amongst people who otherwise would have just been like, yeah, okay, no one would care. And we see that in his name, Chris Smalls, the
yes,
leader.
Chris Smalls, yes, the Black African American union leader from Amazon, yes,
exactly. When he went, again, the same coverage wasn't there. One of many people as well, but just for the sake of this conversation. But when he tells you about what happened to him, brutally beaten up, unnecessary, just not unnecessarily. The whole thing's unnecessary, but beaten up. And I was worried that, don't forget, these are the people that are going to dehumanize Black people. We know anti-Blackness is one of the most entrenched types of discrimination ever. So even when you're going to come say Palestinians, listen, you're still Black. They don't even recognize you as a human being, let alone someone who's coming to apparently try and bring in baby formula. So Greta, and this is why after that, it's very much clear to me that like it's white people, when it comes to physical violence and the state, white people's role is to stand there because you create the conflict, you create the narrative, the controversy. Black people being arrested is not going to make front page news.
Indeed, it's not. You can now call 0201-465-7190, 0201-277-0993, or send a WhatsApp on 0809-597-5805. Some of you had been calling me. Remember, this is Borderlines. You don't call too early. Now I can share my guest with you. All right? So, I believe I have a message for you. Let's read. Good evening, Sergey, and your Borderlines lady guest, Busayo. Nigerians are so polite, eh? They're so polite. Countries, nations are simply open political geographical prisons created by men under the guise and pretext of statehood and nationhood. When one understands this definition, then one would understand the following. Monarchy and monarchical kingdoms in medieval Europe, the slave trade era, the invasion and subjugation of that American and Native Americans by the ancestral whites, while European leaders in the 14th century initiated Christopher Columbus. I think that's what the person meant. Thank you so much for that. You didn't write your name. Let me pick up a call. Make it short, make it sharp, make it succinct. You get one because all the lines are going now. Okay, I didn't get your calls on time. You can call back. Sorry. Okay, here we go. Hello.
Yeah. Good evening, Cecilia.
Good evening. Who's that? Titi Lokwe?
No, this is AY from Badak.
AY, go ahead.
And good evening to your guest. I was a bit fascinated by the story about public toilets in the streets for general use.
Sorry, say that again. Can you speak up?
The toilets.
That they were at the back. Yes, in the UK. Yes, many years ago. Absolutely.
And what struck me is exactly what's happening in Lagos at the moment.
Okay.
Especially on the mainland where people are still pooping in the streets. I'm trying to find out, was it a similar thing? Were they defecating all around?
No, they were not. She's saying that what Busayo said is in the houses, and I know this, in the houses, back in those days, so you're talking the 50s and 60s, they did not have, most houses did not have toilets inside the house. They had the toilets in the backyard. That's a fact. Right? Thank you. Busayo, talk to me about the Palestinian struggle and colonialism.
So the Palestinian struggle embodies is a good case of colonialism in the modern day. Colonialism is when there's an outside force or entity that is controlling your resources, your movement, your state of play, all that kind of stuff to feed that own entity, not you. And it demonizes you kind of like a second-class citizen within that as well. Similar to, well, obviously the colonialism of Africa. Palestine is a colony of Israel. It doesn't control its borders. It doesn't control its legislation in real terms. Yeah. Obviously, there's all this performance of there's a government here, a government here. Moving around Palestine itself is controlled by Israel. The land itself is Palestine, and Palestinians were not involved in any serious conversation about the chopping up of its borders to introduce the state of Israel. After its 1948 borders, in the 60s, from then it began to extend beyond UN recognized borders. So any Palestinian that lives under that is is under the colonialism directly. So Israel is colonizing Palestine. Palestinians are second-class citizens in their own country. They don't have freedom of movement. They have to basically humanize themselves. They can't access basic necessities without the green light from Israel, hence why Israel can say they're shutting off people's electricity and water supplies. And on top of that, they're taking their resources, the olive trees, all the natural resources that they use to export, to live on, they are controlling them. And this is what the invasion of Gaza is also embodying. It's the expansion of the colonial project. It's saying there's too many people indigenously who are creating problems for us to just take. So what we need to do is erase all of you, erase your whole bloodline. So then there's no one else here, because what the international community will do is that when eventually this genocide ends, by God's grace, when they redraw the maps, it will probably be based on population. And if you eradicate your opponent's population, you will only be entitled to a certain amount of land. So killing them off, taking their resources and making it redundant allows them to expand the colonial project.
Thank you.
Palestine is being colonized.
Thank you. You can call now. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt my guest. 0201-465-7190. Okay, I'm coming to your calls now. Hello?
Hello, Chishoge. Good evening.
Good evening. Okay, go ahead, Maduka, quickly.
Yeah, I want to ask your guest, is the way Africans are, what is her prescription for us to be truly free and prosperous?
Okay.
As opposed to the current situation we are now.
Thank you.
Because we're not free.
Thank you. So I'll come back to that. If you just thought, did you hear that? And then let me just answer this call. Hello.
Good evening, Cecilia.
Good evening, Emmanuel. Very quickly.
I want your guest to speak on this narrative of the Israeli are God's own people. I listened to an interview, I think, between Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson. And then...
okay, Israel and God's people. Yeah, I need you to hurry up, Emmanuel. We literally don't have time.
Said something to the effect that you don't curse God's people, or you blame. So, and these people are carrying out this atrocity in the name of they are choosing people they can't be challenged, they can't be. What is that narrative? Because it's affecting we Africans, or people will be blinded, by religion, and then because of their blindness, because of religion,
Thank you.
Support everything it Israelis do. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Busayo, please hold on to that. Hello.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, very quickly.
Madam Loki, I'm calling from the
Go ahead, ma.
First of all, let me start by this. Recently, when there was a report that whether the Nigerian government is aiding the killing of a Christian in Nigeria. I think there was a...
Whether the what?
When there was a report that Nigerian government, whether they are aiding the killing of Christians in Nigeria. I think there was a report, there was a message from the West, I think from Trump. I don't know, but I may be wrong. But my own question I want to ask your guest is, if, for example, today now, because we have the Arab League and we have the European Union, if this carnage that is going on there in Gaza, if such a thing is happening in one of the countries in the West, in the name of looking for militants that kidnap their people, then you start killing women and children. Do you think that the European Union will be silent the way the Arab League are silent?
Thank you. It's a good question. I think that last question. So the first question is, what does Africa need to be free and prosperous? The second question is Israel God's own people? Are Jews God's own people? Or is the Jews of 1948 Israel? I think that's what the question is. And my last caller asked a very good question. If what's happening in Gaza had happened in any of the European Union countries, do you think the European Union would be behaving the way they are? I'm going to give you 2 minutes because these people are all calling now. And we're almost done.
So the last one... I'll start with the last one. Correct. Remind me of the question if I forget. The last one, of course not. It wouldn't be happening. You can't kill white people and there'd be no consequence. The images of white people would disturb us so much that we would use our agency to stop it. So it wouldn't happen, and it's never happened. And this is what society is based off, the dehumanization of others, which allows it to preserve. And also us as people, we also have low self-esteem. So we are also unflinching when we see our people often demonized. And the example of that is also, even with Palestine, there's Congo, Sudan, several other African countries also going through genocide, which don't have the same level of visibility.
Coverage,
so we can see so there's anti-blackness there, and it will never happen in the EU.
Okay. The other question is, what does Africa need to be free and prosperous? What do you think, in your opinion?
It needs self-esteem. In a sense of, you need to believe that you deserve this, and it's not something that it would be nice. You need to see it as an essential for all African people. You need which combines with a sense of pride, not the pride that allows corruption and allows you to walk around and see people poor, but you're wearing your shiny suit. The type of pride that says, it makes me sick that a black person in Africa or Africans can be poor when we live in such a wealthy, rich continent. That is what should really drive you. The second thing is the collaboration of African states working together to make a great Africa. Now, this is not without its risk. We've seen many other people try to do it and their lives are at risk. So you need to acknowledge the system you're in. By doing that, you need to be brave and say, the first set of people that are going to try and do this from now will probably not be successful, because they will trigger the eyes of America and the other Western states, or even Arab states who have vested interest in that, and Chinese states. However, if it's a good thing, it's worth fighting for,
absolutely. So, and my last question is, because I think I've got 3 minutes left, is Israel's God's own people. Apparently, because Tucker Carlson, Ted Cruz was on Tucker Carlson, and he said, the Bible teaches us, that we must follow Israel. And Tucker Carlson said, well, you mean what, 1948 Israel? Where does he say that in the Bible?
1948. So the word Israel has been co-opted by Zionists to make Christians believe they have an unwavering support for a nation state, which is an apartheid state. Because again, Christian Zionism believes it's a prelude to the coming of Christ. They're the first Zionists. They are the ones who are really running it. The Jewish Zionism came a lot later. So that's number two. But they are not God's people in a sense of they're chosen ones. In that respect. We're all God's people. To get through God, the new covenant this is all of Israel. Israel is no longer a place. It's the whole world.
That's right.
And we will get there through our own relationship with God. So this is why people say that it means that you haven't read the Bible. And this is the annoying part. If you read the Bible, you will not think this person is, they share the same name. That's like saying anyone who's called Israel, are they the chosen child? No. So there was no concept of the nation state Israel before it was created in 1948. And the people that created it were not religious.
Thank you.
The confusion is that they're not religious. They were Zionists. They wanted a place to stay because Europe kept exiling them and oppressing them. That's the idea. Israel was actually for them to run away from Europe and finally have a place of their own. That is what they wanted. However, their first option was not Israel or Palestine. It was actually Africa. They were considering all these places in Africa.
Yeah.
I don't want to quote the name, but it's either Rwanda or Uganda. One of those.
Uganda.
Countries. But
Uganda. They actually thought they meant Kenya, but they went to Uganda.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They wanted it there. So how can this be the chosen land where you were able to shop around first and decide?
Absolutely.
So it's not the chosen. And even if they were, it's best that we hold them to the highest regard. Because in what version of your belief would see people say, because you're the chosen ones, you can commit a genocide?
Indeed. Let me answer the last call, the very last call, because I've got 4 minutes left. Okay, I'm coming to your call now. Make it short, sharp, and succinct. Hello.
Hello.
Turn off your radio, please.
Hello.
Quickly.
Sorry, please. This is the one of Odobolu.
Go ahead, quickly.
We have been hearing that peace deal, even in Ukraine, up to throughout last week there is a negotiating with both of them.
Yeah, with Zelensky and with Putin. Yes.
When during the time of negotiation, is the time the war is getting so severe that people are dying in numbers. So are they sincere with what they are telling us in news, or they are just telling us another thing and be doing another thing altogether? Because I don't see any negotiation working out the way we see it in news. Thank you.
It's an interesting question. What he's saying is we keep hearing about peace, ceasefire, but every time the talk of ceasefire and peace comes is when the war kind of goes up a couple of crescendos. Yeah. You've got a minute because they're going to throw me off air. What do you want to say to that?
Israel has no intention of making peace. Peace requires both sides. This is not an endorsement of any particular of Hamas in any way, but they've always accepted the ceasefires. That makes sense. They never rejected it. Israel has no intention of peace because the genocide is the process for them to expand. It's not an issue. It's actually part of the process. They need to commit genocide to get the land. So there will be no peace because Israel does not want peace. And that's it.
I'm going to end this, and I want you to close it with you just sort of responding to it. Again, another one quote of yours from your handle. You wrote, "The point of protests, boycotts, and direct action is to prevent genocide. Waiting until it manifests to speak up makes you a coward. So yes, people are rightfully frustrated. Have the humility to receive all this smoke and take it as a lesson to never betray humanity again." Close for me on that, please. Like 1 minute. Is that one you give me? They give me 1 minute. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, it should cost you. Betraying humanity has a cost to it, which means you're now a threat to other people. You have to see it more than just oh my gosh, I'm trying to realize I didn't know what happened. Everyone else who knew it, you're now a threat to them because now they know that you're capable of being complicit in genocide. The idea about genocide is it's such an extreme version of conflict that you didn't need for it to become a genocide. At the stage of expansion, at the stage of occupation, that's where your heart and your moral center should have been triggered. So of course you have to accept that you've betrayed humanity, but more importantly, commit to never doing it again. And that's all it is. This is not the time for us to clap for you. It's not.
Thank you, Busayo twins. It's been an absolute honor. Honestly, I'm going to come stalking you when I come to London next.
Yes, please, please.
Thank you for being on Borderlines. Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. So much. God bless you, my love. Have a wonderful weekend.
See you.
Bye-bye. Stay away from Kemi. Badenoch. Can you? Yes.
News and information coming. 99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.